Shop Time with Dave back at you. We're over in the other shop at the lathe. Mr. Kenny Kizzle needs some help with the shaft for his John Deere D. So I said, well, let's see what we can do. Let's get in the lathe and I'll show you what we got. What I did is I went and got turned, ground, and polished 4140. So it's already exactly perfect diameter, and it's already as smooth as we're ever going to get it. Costs quite a bit more, but we're actually longer than what I can get in this lathe. We're really pushing the limits of this lathe to do this job, really. But so let's get to it. I got our stock loaded in. I'm going to hit the go button. Turret comes in, sets tool number 1 as a stop. I clamp it. I'm going to pull out, close the door, hit the go button. It's going to put a nice chamfer so it's easy for Kenny to load it into the housing and face it down smooth and bring it to length. Come back. Now we're going to change to a center drill. We're going to put a center in it. You'll see why in here in a moment. See what we got. Nice finish and a good looking center. I'll get set up for the next op and bring you back then. Alright, our shaft is in here, and now you can see why we put the centers in. Took about every bit of length I got in here. But we really need this support out here. We'll close the door and let's make a pass on this and kind of get the idea of what we're doing. It's moving along here pretty fast. Well, it's been a while, but we're finally coming up on the end of it. We got us a nice oil groove in there.
That's good.
We also got a bonfire and the help is here.
I brought beer.
And beer. Don't forget beer and sandwiches. Let's see what we got. Well, so we got a groove with a whole bunch of burrs. We need to do something about that. Run at about 200 RPM and take this file and just skim right across it. That'll work the burrs off of it. Alright, now with some 100 grit, we'll start to polish the shaft a little bit, clean it back up. Now we'll finish her off with some 220. See what we got. Looks pretty good to me. All right, everybody. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up for part one, or phase one of this video. So we're over at the garage here with the Supermax mill, so we can move on to part two of this video, which will be cutting the set screw flats and another set screw hole. So let me get you set up on the tripod and we'll get at it. So we need to get set up on the center of this shaft to cut these little keys in here. We're going to start out with this edge finder or wiggler. Let me get the mill kicked on. This thing's going to flop around and I'm going to move it in. And just the very second that it touches the edge, it's going to kick over to the side, and we know we're on the end. And there, we kicked over to the side. It went to the left. We're probably out of your view, but we know that we're on the edge. Now we know that this diameter is a 1/2 inch. So because of this 1/2 inch, we need to move in a 1/4 inch to get to the true edge of the part. So it's out of your frame of view, but I'm going to reach down here to the handle and I'm going to move in 250 thousandths. Give me a little visual, and it looks good. And because this shaft is 1.5 inches or 1,500 thousandths, we need to go half of that, or 750. We should be there now. Now I'm just doing a quick visual check, sanity check more or less. And it looks like it's right there on the center. I'll swap out to an ML and we'll get going. Alright, I have some bluing on here with some scribe marks I'm following. I'm sure you can't see them. The camera's not going to pick them up because I can barely see them. What I'm going to do is travel this direction and down at the same time, cranking both hands or two handles at once, so it can avoid trying to center cut with this end mill. And I'm just going to work it across. And I'll probably do this in a couple passes until I get to our stopping point on the other end. Nothing to it but to do it. Get some cutting oil on here. I've reached the end. Now I'm going to back up to our first scribe line and take out where our taper is, or where we ramp down. So we're back at our beginning. Get some more lube. And do just the same thing again. We're going to go to our final depth of 1/8 of an inch. Just like before, we'll come back to the start of our taper. And there we have it. I'll go ahead and get the other one cut. I'll bring it back. All right, we got our little keys in here. Guess they're not truly keys. They're more of a flat for a set screw to sit down inside. You can see we had a pretty dull end mill. So let's see if we can take a file and kind of clean them burrs off. The next thing we need to do is we need to have this shaft rotated 90 degrees so we can put a hole for a set screw down here. Now I'm going to kind of cheat and use a speed square and just line it up. Our two flats here will be parallel. Once we get to where there's no wiggle, we know we're on. Lock it down in the vise. We got our center drill in here. We come down a touch. We're just kind of eyeball a 1/2 inch. I know about the top of this part of the cutter is about a 1/2 inch. So let's do this. Starting to get somewhere now. All right, that gets us a nice start. And I'll swap out to the end mill again. Now I got our end mill in. I'm just going to drill it like you're drilling it with a regular drill. Give us a little liquid love. And we're just going to go down to the bottom where that center drill went, and that'll give us plenty enough of a set screw hole. And that'll do it. All right, guys, full disclosure here. Mistakes were made. Let's look at what we got. Here in front, we got our original. You can see the scoring. That's what Kenny was concerned about and wanted to replace this shaft. Here's our hole, and you can see it's all boogered out. There's their oil groove. All right, let's go on to my first attempt. There was some issues. What I had going on was problems with it moving around in the chuck. And things happened so fast in there and being covered in coolant, you couldn't see it happening. I still believe this to be a good part. It just looks ugly and a big, huge dent to our personal pride. At least there's plenty of room for the oil to go in there. Mistake number 2, when I went to go grab an end mill, I grabbed a 9/16. At least it was nice and sharp. And the shank was 1/2 inch. And I didn't realize that it was a 9/16 end mill. I thought it was a 1/2 inch because it was labeled 1/2 by 9/16. And I only saw the first part where it said 1/2. Oops. Then our next mistake, I miscounted and did a little bit of in the head math wrong. I went 250 thousandths too far. Fortunately, it was just a mark to make sure I was doing my math correct. Yet again, it's ugly, but it's recovered in time to be a usable part. And we saved it. And then finally, our finished completed part. We got a nice looking oil groove. Maybe could have gone a little deeper with it, but I didn't want to take chances because it was looking so good at that point. Our 1/2 inch wide set screw reliefs, or keys really, whichever you want to call them. And then our final hole. D bird. Looks good. Well, that's going to wrap it up for this one. This was part 1 of a 2-part series. Making a shaft and some bushings for Kenny Kizzle's 1927 John Deere D restoration. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you picked up on some tricks and you liked it. And don't forget to come back for part 2 when we make some bushings to go in the gears that'll ride on this shaft. Alrighty, thank you for watching Shop Time with Dave. Come back for more.